Imagine with me for a moment what the future of the church might look like. Imagine a church where we were able to respond immediately to anything that was going on in the world. Imagine a church where we could speak powerfully and relevantly into the lives and into the experience of the community that surrounds our buildings. Imagine a church which was activated with the energy and with the skills of an army of young people working in the digital space. Imagine a church where all of us were no longer bound by the restrictions of physical location and of a particular time. Imagine a church where we could speak at the press of a button to an entire worldwide audience, going live at any moment from any place. You might have realized it already, but the future is now. The future of the church is here, and you and I get to be a part of this incredible movement of believers sharing the hope of the gospel and the message of Jesus Christ at the touch of a button in a digital space without the restrictions of the former years of time and place. So I want to invite you into this experience. I want you to employ your skills to share the message of Jesus in the digital space with whatever tools you're accustomed with. Many voices reach an entire world and reach that entire world now. This is the future of the church. We are called to make people fishers of men, and in doing so, fulfill the gospel commission. No more boundaries, no more restrictions. The digital age enables all of us to participate in a unique and a powerful way, and the future is now. I am truly optimistic about the future of the church.
Hey there, Kent. How are you?
I'm really well, thanks, Rachel. It's good to see you coming to us from the future. As VeggieTales has taught us, the future has been white since the 70s, and you've got the white background going on there. It's very cool. You're on a spaceship or something?
No, this is just my house. Where are you at? Are you on your back porch?
I'm on the back deck, just on the shores of Lake Macquarie. You're in Sydney, I take it?
I am, and I'm actually very excited that you're joining me here today, because we have some really exciting things that we're talking about. We're talking about the future of the church, and we're not just talking about it, we're having a conversation about it, because there are a lot of things we need to be wrestling with right now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There have been a lot of challenges. I mean, the whole sort of live stream church thing, had been happening for quite a while for a lot of churches for a number of years. But obviously with COVID restrictions and this sort of thing, a lot of churches have just been, thrown into this situation where they've had to confront, what are we going to do? Let's get, teched up in a hurry. I think it doesn't have to be fancy. Some have done it really simply, and it's gone really well. But obviously, there are still questions and there are still struggles. Particularly as we try to transition, back to sort of a live environment, sort of an online environment. It's kind of hard sometimes to make good decisions there.
Yeah, and then that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to actually put it out there and be really honest that we don't have the answers, but we are looking to wrestle with the questions and to bring as many people as possible into that conversation. And I think it's exciting because we're joining together. We didn't even introduce ourselves, Ken. What are we doing? I'm Rachel, and I work with digital discipleship. And Ken is one of my colleagues from Adventist Media. What do you do, Ken? Tell them, tell the people.
I've worked for Adventist Media for just over a decade now.
Wow.
Working with Record Magazine, working with Hope Channel, making TV programs there.
Yep.
But right now I'm working with Signs of the Times magazine, which is a magazine that's aimed at the general public,
Yeah.
rather than our usual thing where it's often Adventists talking to Adventist Christians using Christian lingo for other Christians. This is a magazine that's aimed at the public, but it has faith issues in there, and it's a great tool to share with your friends. And we've got a website too. You can share that way too. Doesn't even have to be physical.
Yeah, so I mean, it's exciting because we're both working in this space, but what's more exciting to me at the moment is just that we're joining together with our unions and we've come together to understand the needs of the different areas that we're ministering to. We've come together to put this program together to wrestle with these questions together. So I think we're going to find great synergy by working together. And I think it's appropriate that we bring in Victor Kulikov, who actually rang me on the phone, and it kind of started this entire process. So I think it's really appropriate to bring him into the conversation right now. Hello.
Hi, Rachel. Hi, Kent.
Hey, how you doing? Hey, this is fantastic. This is obviously not just an Aussie thing. I mean, the video that was played at the beginning was, had an NZ on the web address there. You're also joining us from Auckland, Victor. This is fantastic. This is a division-wide thing. Is it your initiative?
Well, it actually, turned out like this, but it wasn't meant to be. Thanks to Rachel, she really a blessing to all of us. Started to network with other unions as well, and everybody just pulled together, and it just turned into this big thing, big blessing.
Yeah, I think it's been a great process, at least from my perspective. Maybe all the guys are thinking something different, but from my perspective, it's been great to work together and to leverage off of each other's strengths. So that's been a really fun experience.
So what happened? New Zealand was one of the first countries that started to come out of lockdown. And as a lot of churches came out of their experience being in lockdown, they started to reflect on their journey. And they said, wow, we learned a lot of good lessons. And what Rachel had been saying earlier, with digital discipleship started to hit home. And they're like, wow, we heard that, but now we need to actually rethink and learn from this. And I was part of a number of various teams at various levels, from local church to South Pacific Division, various committees, where the same theme, the same topic kind of was raised, that we're going to learn from this. We can't just go back and be the same. And after one of those meetings, I came to my office, and seriously, I felt so impressed. I'm going to send an email to Rachel, no, ring. So I rang Rachel, and we had about, 50-minute conversation and a prayer, really about, we're going to do something. We're going to empower those, or at least unite those churches, because we don't have the answers. But we want to create a space where all of those leaders, all of those churches can come together, network, learn from each other, get inspired, and not be the same. Because we can't just go back and be, what we were. So I want to see Rachel, what did you think when I rang you out of blue? Why is he ringing me now? What did you think?
No, I think it was good, because I think it's better to understand the needs to, create something. And I think you were kind of that push to keep going. But I think one thing that was interesting that you said was that someone would have to convince you now not to tell a church to be online. Can you just, expound, go into that in a little bit more detail, can you?
Yeah. And seriously, I believe, there is that term, the present truth. What Rachel was trying to achieve earlier was kind of going like this, for a lot of folks. But now we see that it's not optional. We're going to be there. And just like we heard now, Pastor Adrian in his first video, just intro video, imagine if just at the reach of a button we can talk to the rest of the world. And we heard amazing stories of people who, in the comfort of their lounge, shared worship with the extended family, who started to really learn about Jesus, who hadn't actually learned anything, or who kind of cooled off, and their faith reignited because of that. So we see the wide reach of this. Is this optional now? We say no. We're gonna really hone into it.
Hey, I'm just wondering, Rachel, you organised a number of digital discipleship conferences over recent years in Australia and New Zealand, and the focus of a lot of the what was talked about there seemed to be we were profiling individuals who had different digital ministries, YouTubes or podcasts or of things like that. But now it seems we're confronting this issue of the local church. This whole digital thing is more than a sort of on the side personal ministry hobby thing, and more of a challenge to the local church. What do you, I guess both of you guys might have a perspective there on what are some of the different challenges or some of the different aspects that we need to take into account now that we're looking at digital activities, online activities when it comes to the local church?
Well, I think you're asking perfect questions, Kent, and I think we're going to have to jump into our group. So this is a huge plug for our Facebook group. We have the Adventist Church Online Network Facebook group, and we also have it in French as well. So if you'd like to jump in one of those groups, and that's where we're having some of these more detailed conversations, as well as in the small group after this event. So Kent, you're asking perfect questions. And I think we're gonna have to table them until we get into the groups and into.
Okay.
You'll have to join the group, Ken. You know, if you want to get into a deep conversation like that, you have to join the group.
Okay, all right, but this is the right place to ask these questions, right?
This is what we're doing. Asking
excellent,
those questions.
fantastic.
Yes.
That's why it's called network,
yes,
so that we
exactly.
can network and learn from each other. And one other last thing, that we really are in a space where we appreciate a change. That change doesn't hurt. That change is a good thing because it makes us stronger and it sharpens our thought. So let's make the most of it.
Yes. Thank you so much, Victor, for coming on and having a chat with us. And I'm sure we'll be seeing your face again over these next few weeks that we're going to be together. Thank you.
Now, Rachel, am I right? I'm looking at the schedule. I'm seeing we've got a video from Fiji. Is this right?
Yeah, we're gonna check out what one of the young people there think about what the future of the church is bringing.
Okay, yeah, this is a young lady by the name of Agnes Duwaimbe, I believe, telling her story. So, yeah, shall we go to that now?
Yep, happy to go to it.
Hello, my name is Agnes Olivier Ndoembe. I believe that the Seventh-day Adventist Church is slowly adapting and adopting new ways to spread the gospel to all the world. And this coronavirus, this COVID-19 has not only been a negative thing to this world, but it's also positive in the way of spreading the gospel, because it has shown us the future. Instead of having meetings in church, we're now having meetings online, Zoom meetings, watching preachings through the internet. And I believe that that's a good way of going forward, and hopefully the church moves with this generation and adopts this new way, and hopefully it becomes a new normal. Thank you.
I love that.
So cute. And so much wisdom for someone so young. Hey, someone should give her a digital discipleship patch on her Pathfinder sash, I reckon.
Hey, is there one of those? I think we're supposed to be giving Agnes one of those digital discipleship patches.
There needs to be one. There definitely needs to be one. Yeah.
You know, I think we should see who we have here with us. We should do a little roll call. What do you think?
Oh, definitely. You said earlier, Rachel, you said you had 100 a couple of days ago, you said there were 160 people who'd signed up. So what are those numbers looking like now? And do we know how many people we have online?
I know we've had like over 200 people actually sign up to take part in like just the entire process, as well as being part of the small groups afterwards. But I'd be curious to have some people just shout out where you're joining us from, like what country, what city, your church. This is time to rep your city and rep your church.
Hey.
So we have Vi. So we know that Vi is coming from New Zealand. Like anybody else out there, this is the time to rep your city.
Oh, Candice! Wow, there you go.
Hey, Candice, how you doing?
It's been a while. I saw your husband too, Rachel. He had a comment there.
I think I have. You always have that built-in support system.
That's right. You got a fan.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think we also had a similar story of a church, Nemia Church. That, you know, they're, from what Victor explained to me, they're, you know, really traditional church, but they found a way to not just use the digital space during the time of lockdown, but even after lockdown, which is one of the things we want people to do. We want to challenge people to continue to stay in the online space. So it'll be great to hear from the crew in Nemia just to see how they are using the digital space to continue their ministry, both internally and externally.
Well, welcome team. Pastor Hetza, thank you. Jean-Marc, thank you for agreeing to share with us. Pastor Hetza, I know you are ministering in a very established church in New Caledonia, in Nemia, the largest church, very established, hard kind of to change. But you've done some amazing, or you experienced some amazing things over the last couple of months. Tell us how your church responded to the lockdown. What did you do?
Yeah, you know, the whole mission itself was faced with a major crisis: how to leave church in such a context, and people could not see each other, and spiritually we are running dry. And should we allow them just to be on YouTube, watch sermons, or are we going to be creative or do something from New Cal itself, so to care for the needs of the church? So we started Zoom Church. We had our worship service in the morning, and we had more than 90 families every Sabbath attending Zoom Church. And in the afternoon, we had our Sabbath school, and this was a major shift, having just one service in the morning, and it give us free time in the afternoon to experience Sabbath school and much more.
Wow. Jean-Marc, how did the members respond? How did they react to the whole kind of change in digital church going?
So in this phase of silence or isolation, the fact that we have these digital tools allowed us to get back with the other members, and we are very happy to see each other through this tool.
Yes.
Yes.
I realize that you are continuing, Jean-Marc. What are the ways you are still using digital means for?
Well, now we have returned to the classical schedule with the Sabbath school in the morning, but we continue the Sabbath school on the afternoon for the members who want to do that, and we share some other points of life or prayer, and study some specific points like prophecy. So it's very useful to have this tool. It multiplies opportunities to address some specific needs for adult groups.
Excellent.
For example, because on the afternoon, the youth, the pathfinders, etc., the schedules are overpacked in the church. So we can have these small groups easily, and it's very appreciated.
Yes. And from your point of view, Pastor Hatza, what are the advantages you see of using digital means?
I think that the crisis allowed us to understand that church is not just about being gathering in a building. We could experience church in another space, like that digital space. And it's more about fellowship, communicating with each other, seeing each other. We could not see each other during lockdown. And now, since the Numea context, we are far apart from each other, very busy. Now we can meet anytime we want in the comfort of our house. And after the lockdown, now we are free, still free to go roam around. But we still use Zoom. For instance, we have live groups. Like lay leaders are doing live groups using Zoom. Our prayer meetings, we no longer gather in the church, but we do it on Zoom, and this allows the islands to join, or even Wallis, they join the prayer meeting on Zoom. So it's a new way of connecting with each other, and there's no distance. We can see each other. And even our church board, we do it on Zoom, and it allows me also to gather, to meet with my elders, to do coaching, mentoring at 9 p.m., 8 p.m., and they don't need to take their car to return back home or to come to church. So just sit on the comfort of their office, and once we are done, we go to bed.
Yeah. Fantastic. Very inspiring. Thank you so much. And I'm pretty certain other churches will be inspired also by your experience. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. May God continue to bless you heaps. God bless.
Thank you. God bless.
Oh, I love that. Kent, I was just thinking as I was sitting here, I was like, I'm getting so excited because God is like, I cannot fit inside of this building. Like, I need to be out there. I need to be doing stuff. I want to connect people. I want people who maybe never have thought about connecting before to start connecting. And I think God is like on the verge, just really like, he's just chomping at the bit to do something super exciting. And he wants us all to be part of that process.
Wow, you're really hyped on that, Rachel.
I came back after Numea. I was like, yes, come on.
Yeah. No, that sounds really good. I have to admit, I think there are some aspects of church that we could definitely do, better online, and certainly cheaper. Like when it comes to business meetings, those sorts of, the work of the church. But when it comes to cell groups and like Bible study, and I don't know, I kind of prefer the one-on-one one thing. I think there's a place when we should seek out physical contact, and there's a place for digital. It's just a matter of finding the right mix, and finding the right time to transition from one to the other. I mean, obviously in COVID we didn't have a lot of choice, but there's definitely nurture that can happen online. But I think a lot of us just have this natural human desire to want to make the transition at some place, and internet dating. Hey, when can we meet up? You know what I mean? Also, I've changed my location, by the way.
You've been married for a long time. What do you know about internet dating?
I've heard. Yeah. So I'm inside now. My neighbour decided this was a good time to start trimming his hedge. So I had to run inside.
You know what? One thing, as you were talking, you were saying how you prefer things like cell groups, and maybe the business meetings can be here, maybe the cell groups can be there. But the next guest that we have coming on is actually talking to us about how there is no kind of prescription to what church looks like. He's actually telling us that we should, I don't want to steal his thunder, I don't want to tell his whole message, but I think it's really exciting because it gives freedom to people to think about what is going to be the best fit and how can we minister best to our community. So we're going to bring in the ever enthusiastic Brendan Pratt to share a little bit of wisdom, and then we're going to have him on live. So if you guys have any questions, I want you to listen to what Pastor Brendan Pratt is saying. If you have any questions, you can pop them in the chat, and we will bring those questions on live for him after we watch his overview that he's going to give us. Then you can ask some questions afterwards.
Yeah, hey, and if you thought Rachel was hyped, check out this guy.
He has me beat.
Oh, tech issues.
Yeah, but what's perfect is that if they don't get that worked out, we actually have the man himself, the man of the hour is here. So, actually one thing I love that people did not get to see yet in that video is that he pulled out his whiteboard. So I thought that was serious.
Yeah. See, that's old school. I like that.
Yeah. See, the thing is, if you don't get that video working, Brendan, I know you can hear me. I'm expecting you to go get your whiteboard and your markers and diagrams on that whiteboard for us, okay? So if they don't get that video working, then let's see.
Let's have another go.
And we have a whole bunch of high schoolers joined together on Sabbath. I'm excited that we're having this conversation about what church can be as we renegotiate what people are calling a new normal. If you're in Victoria, it doesn't really feel like a new normal in Melbourne. It feels like we've been playing this game for a while and continue to play it in lockdown. And Amanda, my wife, and I, we run a high school Sabbath school, and we have a whole bunch of high schoolers joined together on Sabbath. And hey, while we miss being in that physical space, there's some things that we've learned and some things we've enjoyed and some ways we've been together and engage people who were disconnected from our group and engage people who weren't part of our church community. And there's things that we're finding out about of how we can be the church in a different space. But I'm excited you're having this conversation because it's a conversation we've needed to have a long time before COVID-19 came along. And if COVID-19 is the catalyst for some of these conversations, then there's good to come from it. What are these conversations I'm talking about? It's conversations about ecclesiology, about our theology of church, about what we're doing and why we do it and where things are headed. As we think about church, as we reopen churches in some parts of Australia, we're thinking, what are we reopening? Did it ever close? What's it actually look like? What's the space of a building? What's the space of these services? What have we learned? What are we learning at the moment about the future of our church? So I'm excited that we're having this conversation and that leaders in our church and leaders in our local churches, it's time to put up our spiritual radars. It's time to pray incredibly about the church, keeping in mind it's his church, it's his body, the object of his supreme regard, that we get the privilege of being co-laborers in and thinking and praying and dreaming about how this body of Christ is going to impact our community. So as we do that, we're thinking about what's church look like. Now, sure, there's all the the logistical stuff of what it looks like for distancing and health. And we've got people who are breaking their necks to get back together again. We've got people who are not going to come back until there's a vaccine. We've got people who are saying, oh, I don't know if I want to come back at all because I've really enjoyed this, what it's been in this last little while. And we've got people who have connected in that time who are saying, hey, I'll go and see what this looks like otherwise. All of this is happening. And churches that are already opening up are seeing that. Question is this a interruption or a disruption? Kerry Newhoff asked a question. He says, is the church being the mall, the shopping mall, that's waiting for the customers to come back, but have the people already gone to a different place with Amazon? Now, keeping in mind, even the fact we talk about church customers is problematic, but that's another story with consumerism. But are we having the conversations we should have had back here anyway? Is it an interruption? And are we just going to say, hey, when this is over, we're going to get back to what it was? Or is it disruption? And we take this opportunity to think about some other ways of being the church. Good questions are, how are we going? If we had to draw a graph of how we're feeling about this, what's it going to look like? What have we learned? There's stuff we're doing better. Prayer meetings are better attended. Small groups are more likely to have people attend them because you don't have to drive distances. We've learned to use Zoom pretty well. What have we missed? Churches that have already started to be getting back into the physical space are saying we missed worshiping together. We missed those events of the church family, births and things that we did together. But what have we gained? What have we learned that we want to keep? Well, there's ways we can connect and engage people who otherwise we wouldn't. There's things we can do better in this new environment that we weren't doing so well before. What's this crisis teach us about the future of church? What's it making us think? And this requires us to put up our radars and do some thinking of what church is going to look like. Now, as things change, you get some members who are going, what's going on? Everything's up for grabs. No, it's not up for grabs, because if we look at what the church is to be, that's still exactly the same. We're still called to be the community of God. We're still called, in an Adventist context, to be this remnant with a mission, this countercultural community that's going to show the world what happens when a group of people do life God's way. It's still the same do. We're still going to grow, connect, share, worship. In our fundamental on the church, it says the church of God exists in continuity with the children of Israel from Old Testament times, as we're called out for. And it says proclamation, sharing. We're called out for fellowship, community. We're called out for the service of all mankind. We're called out for growing in the word, and we're called out for worship. Growing, serving, connecting, sharing, worshiping. That's the 5 things the church is to do. It doesn't change. This doesn't change. This doesn't change. This has been there the whole time. This is a biblical mandate. Here's where the action is. How are we going to do it? And that's the exciting part, and that's why I'm excited about the conversations you're having here, because they're how conversations. How is this going to be? What are we going to be? What are we going to do? But how are we going to do it? And there's as many different ways to get it right as there are churches. And this is why there's no cookie-cutter model. This is why it's going to take church leaders having conversations, having spiritual discernment. This is why, even though it's much easier to prepackage answers, this one is bigger than that. In the New Testament, you found Greek churches operating different to the Jewish-based churches. You found house churches. You found all kinds of ways of missional opportunities were taken where they were to be the church. We still do the same today. And that's why I get a little bit hesitant when someone goes, it has to be this way. It can be that way, but it can be that way, that way, that way, that way, that way. If they're being the community of Christ, if they're growing, serving, connecting, sharing, worshiping. And that's where I'm excited, because we're having these conversations about ecclesiology, theology of the church. We're having conversations about what's it look like? Where does consumer church fit into this? What's the challenge of this digital discipleship when we're needing to engage consumers, but we don't want to leave them in that commodified space. We want to grow them into the substance of what it is to be an Adventist in the context of the kingdom of God. That's an exciting place to go to. But how do we take people to that space beyond this consumable commodified space? Because out of COVID, we could just be growing lots more consumers, is what Michael Frost says. And we could be doing that, or we could be engaging them in those commodified forms to take them somewhere else bigger. The big countercultural imaginary of what it is to do life, do church in the kingdom of God. So let's have fun having those conversations. I'm glad you're having them, and let's seek God's leading as we discover new ways of being his church.
Oh, fantastic stuff, Brendan. Thanks very much. Are you hearing me, Rachel?
I realized I was on mute. It's like
you were on mute.
classic problem. I was having a whole conversation too.
Welcome to the era of Zoom. You're on mute. You're on mute. Get off mute. Happens all the time. All right,
Thank you for being here with us today, Brendan.
Thank you. Oh, it's a bit scary watching myself, by the way, because I think it's... Anyway, you guys are probably used to that.
You know what? I think before we jump in the conversation, I want our the people who are watching to know that we are looking at your comments, and I see here that Neil asked a very specific question, so I want to drop it in there before it passed. He said many members were kind of averse to bringing the worship service online before because they thought it would cause members to no longer want to be in physical contact with members. What do you think now? Do you have any thoughts around that idea?
Yeah, I think what we were forced to do has made us learn this can work, that there's church members who feel more connected than ever. So just because we're not in that physical space doesn't mean we can't connect. The Sabbath school that I ran this morning, we had 50 high school kids, and some of them we've never been in contact with before. Some of them had disconnected from church. It doesn't require mum and dad to bring them to the church's physical space. And so I guess I've learnt my lesson in some ways. If someone had said, run Sabbath school online, I would have been, oh, whatever. But we've got kids who we wouldn't be connecting with otherwise. Our challenge now is how do we keep them if it ever does finish in Victoria, it feels like we're going on forever. If we ever do get back to a place where face-to-face, we don't want to lose that. And so we're already thinking about what do we do to keep the young people we've got connected with, and our young people are connecting more than ever. At this very second, the Sabbath school around this morning, I've got another screen with all those kids. They've all stayed online this afternoon, all chatting with each other, and they're all.
They're chatting right now. As we're chatting here, they're chatting there
in the Zoom space on it, and we just leave the Zoom room open. They're all talking with each other, and kids who otherwise would be sitting home by themselves, disconnected, are having a wonderful Sabbath afternoon, showing each other their pets. And there's, as I say, if you'd asked me a few weeks ago, I would have agreed that no, it doesn't really work like this. I have to change my mind.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think that's very brave of you to be willing and open to change your mind, because in order for us to have these conversations, all of us are going to have to change our minds to some degree, you know?
Hey, Brendan, there's a question up on the screen right now that I think is really relevant. How do we avoid falling into the consumer trap where we're just watching church rather than being church? And I think it even goes broader than that. I mean, you said before, and it's very sort of tempting to say it, hey, it doesn't matter, which technology you use, which mode you use, it's all cool, there's no right or wrong way. And I see where you're coming from, but I do think that the mode of church and the technology that we choose can actually be a reflection of our theology, or can give a theological message. Like, for example, if you have a completely excellently produced live stream church service where everything is perfect and there's no room for interaction, that is giving a certain message. Whereas if you have a Facebook chat or a Zoom chat and there's like cats running through and noise in the background, but people are getting to open their hearts, it says something different theologically. So the technology we choose can have a theology attached to it. Can you comment on that?
I totally agree with that, Kent. But what about this thought? What is commodified about our form? So there's formal commodification and there's substance commodification.
Please explain.
Commodifying the form is the outside of the container. And so here's my container, and I'll commodify the outside to engage. Otherwise, people might not engage. And sometimes that slick service could be the commodified form to engage. If it stays there, problem. Okay? And exactly what you're saying is the problem. That this slick picture gives that. But so the outside of the container needs to be commodified to get engagement. Unfortunately, for a long time, our church, and went through the whole church growth era where the outside of the container became the total extent of it. Inside the container is the kingdom of God and Adventist expressions of that. That's our substance. If our formal commodification gets to our substance, then that's fantastic. Because if we just have the substance, no one's going to engage, because like it or not, we're all in consumer culture, and we've got to make it commodifiable to some extent, but not leave it there, and make sure the commodified version doesn't become the full version.
Or a barrier to the substance of what's inside.
Consumerism simplifies, homogenizes, and it takes the substance and nullifies it and wants to make the outside the whole thing. The big challenge is, what of those commodifiable forms that then move to the substance? And those commodifiable forms, I think we're seeing lots of other ways we can be that outside of the container. We need to do a lot more work on what the inside of the container means and how we engage into that substance. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think it's a lot for me to chew on. I'm like, my brain is like trying to understand the commodified substance and the commodified form and like what, so I think you're miles ahead of us, Brendan, on your thinking, but I think you are stretching us in a way to kind of process it,
Well, I had to write a PhD on, no, I didn't have to, I chose to write a PhD on this stuff, so there's some boring chapters about form and substance.
If we got it in 5 minutes, then that would be a problem, because you've taken so long to study it. We actually had another question as well about virtual church, and then there was someone else who asked about an online city. And I think you guys are asking some great questions, and they will be great places to ask your questions in the Adventist Church Online Network group. If you speak French, if you speak French, I hope you can understand what I'm saying, to tell you to go into the French-speaking Adventist Church Online group, or even in our chats that we're going to have after this event. We're going to have some small group chats, and you'll be able to dig deeper on some of these questions. It's unfortunate, Brendan, because you have so much great stuff to share. Is there maybe a final point that you can give us that we can take away? And we will definitely bring you back for one of the following weeks that we're having.
There's lots of ways to get community right. Put up our spiritual radars. There's no answer going to drop from out there. It's going to be us having these conversations together, which I think what you're doing is fantastic. This is the kind of conversation that's going to help us sharpen each other and be a more effective church in this country.
This is awesome.
Or this area, I should say, because more than Australia, it's New Zealand and beyond.
Yeah, it's everywhere. It's all throughout the South Pacific Division. So the other thing is, if you have any comments that you'd like to make and you think, oh, where's the place where I can put my comments? We do have a place for you to do that on the Adventist Church Online website. You'll go there and you'll see that we are collecting comments from the church members, from leaders. We just want there to be a space where you can be inspired, you can be challenged, you can be stretched. And we'll have that information for you as well, that you can participate in the conversation. We're going to jump now into a video from one of our former speakers from one of our past digital discipleship conferences, Matthew Lucio. He's a pastor at Peoria Adventist in Illinois, the state I can't even get my words out, in the US. And he also has the Adventist History podcast. And he's going to challenge us a bit to think about the buildings. So we've been talking a lot about the digital space, but he's going to challenge us on how we're using our physical buildings. Let's jump into that.
Hey everyone, my name is Matthew Lucio. I pastor here in Peoria, Illinois, in the United States of COVID. Well, COVID has made it clear in function and not just in theology that the church is not a building, it is a group of people. But that doesn't mean the space is unimportant. And I wanted to just take a minute and share a part of what I see as the future of the church space. Now, church buildings tend to be old and very churchy. Like here in America, they don't sell well because they're what we call single-use facilities. In other words, McDonald's is not going to buy a church and turn it into a McDonald's. There's very few companies that can use the kind of irregular spaces that churches have. And so sometimes we can look at that as a downside, but I look at that as a positive. I mean, they're usually pretty large buildings. And so we can begin looking at ways to transform the spaces within those buildings. So our church in Peoria, for instance, we had a library, and it was like most church libraries. They had a ton of books that no one ever checked out. I mean, we looked at the little card, the little checkout card, and it was like, I don't know, a few years, and like one person had checked out a book in the last few years. But it was important to have a library, just in case people suddenly wanted to start reading again. Well, we made a change. We voted to cut down the number of books that we had in the library, and we moved it somewhere else from where it was. And so we used the new room, the old library, to build a studio, start a YouTube channel, and we also soundproofed it so we could do podcasts and things like that in there. And I was thinking of Katy Perry the other day. I wasn't listening to her music. I was just thinking about the fact that Katy Perry's first album was Christian. She grew up singing in the church. And so did Whitney Houston, so did Britney Spears, and so did Justin Timberlake. In fact, you can't tell the story of popular music without telling the story of churches. You cannot tell the story of great works of art without mentioning churches. And I think this benefits everyone, and I want to get back to that. I'm not happy that these artists left the churches that they started out in, but I'm proud at how churches gave them a platform to grow their gifts. And it seems like emerging artists today are less likely to get their start in churches. And so I ask, why does this have to be that way? Why can't we give the next generation of artists a platform at our churches? What if we gave people the keys to our new church studio and said, look, we have some cameras and mics and stuff like that. We can give you the basics of running a camera and editing a video and just let you start your own YouTube channel. Or we find a young person and we say, here's a microphone. The church can pay $7.99 or whatever it is for a basic podcasting plan, and then we can help you launch, right? Like, what if the church once again became a creative space, a space to develop these creative gifts, a place for becoming? I think a church has a very important mission towards the outside, and I don't want to take away from any of that, the impact that we need to be having directly in our community. But I think we often miss the responsibility and privilege of developing the people we already have. For me, the core function of a church is to cooperate with the Holy Spirit to help people become more like God. Like, we are a people factory. We are a becoming factory. We want to grow people. So it just got me thinking of these spaces in our church, and we have this one creative room, and there's other rooms, right, that can be done. I don't know what we should do with them yet, but I know that this one room, it just kind of happened by accident. It became a really impressive thing. And so we have a young adult here who's awesome, but it was kind of on the edge, kind of on the bubble, and he's appeared since then. Since we created this room, he's appeared in several of our videos. He's like, I want to start my own podcast. I want to start my own YouTube channel. And we're like, go for it, man. You can come over anytime and record. We have a local professor. He's a Jewish professor, teaches at a local university, and he talks a lot about Torah. And he teaches kind of, he wants to have his own channel where he teaches about the Torah. We're like, just come over, man, and you can just use our equipment anytime you want, right? And so it's changing how we relate to the world around us. It's not just about bringing food to people. It's not just about having programs. It's also like, we want to be a resource to the people around us. We will teach you. We will help give you skills. And anyways, I'm sure you creative people who are watching can take it even further. I'm just going to wrap it up there. But I want to encourage you guys to be thinking about the spaces in your church buildings. How can we use this space to help people become more like God? How can we help them develop the gifts God has given them? So look at the empty spaces in your church buildings as opportunities, as blank canvases. Anyways, I hope that gets some creative juices flowing. You all take care. God bless you all. And I'm sure we'll see each other again.
Hey, that's great. You're from Illinois originally, aren't you,
Yep,
Rachel?
to Chicago.
Go Chicago, go the Cubs. Yeah. No, that was really good to hear. I mean, Brendan gave us some really good sort of foundational stuff and helped us recognize there's theology involved here. But what we just heard from Matt Lucio just then was, really practical. It's the sort of the other side of things, eh?
Yeah, and I see here that Luke Ferrugia, he had asked earlier about what about the physical building, and then we brought this one on. So now he's saying, love this thinking. So Luke, I would love for you to give us a little bit more. Why do you love this thinking? Give us a little bit more about why you love it, and we'll bring that back into the conversation.
Yeah, we've got apparently 85 people watching, which is fantastic. We got people from Nunawading, we got people from Tauranga in New Zealand. There's people from Vanuatu. So Jean-Pierre on there. So bonjour Jean-Pierre. And so are we looking for people to give us some feedback now, Rachel, in terms of what practical ideas they've got out of this from what they've heard so far? What might have been sparked off?
Yeah, if you've had any inspiration, we'd love to hear about it because we'd love to share it with the larger group. If you would like to share that in the Facebook group afterwards, or even in the small groups we're going to have after this, that would be great. I think, have you seen any inspiration? Have you had any inspiration, Kent?
Look, I think that that last, what Matt was just saying really challenged me, because I thought, wow, to have these resources that are expensive, that also give this incredible global reach, and then to say, for example, to your young people, hey, do a podcast, that implies a heck of a lot of trust,
Yes.
because you're going to be worried as church leaders, are they going to be on message or off message? Are they going to represent us accurately? Are they going to get us all into trouble? And I guess, so yeah, trust number one, but what it points to number two is there needs to be some leadership, some mentorship, some coming alongside, so I think sometimes we use this phrase, release, we need to release people into ministry. I think that's fantastic, but releasing doesn't mean we just let them go on their merry way. I mean, they're a part of a community, and that they need to have wisdom and mentorship as well. So I guess those are some of the thoughts that were ticking through my head as I was listening to Matt.
Yeah, I love his thinking. I love what he's he's always thinking, like taking it that step further, and about how we're growing people, like this whole process is about us, the Holy Spirit changing us. And there's many different ways that happens. I would love to touch on another story now, if you feel like it's a good appropriate time to
go for it. You're the boss lady, Rachel. You make the call.
That's what my husband says.
He knows what's good for him.
Actually, now we would love to understand what's happening more at our church in June Valley in PNG. They're doing some awesome things there. They're actually innovators in their space, because I think they're one of the first churches that are really live streaming there. So we'd love to join Isaac Manu in PNG so we can check out what is happening there, and we can be inspired by the work is going on in PNG.
Good afternoon. Isaac Manu is my name. I attend June Valley Seventh-day Adventist Church in Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea. June Valley Church, we have been streaming since 2014. The aim of our streaming has been to take the everlasting gospel message to the people where they are, in the homes, on the mobile phones, wherever they are. Thus fulfilling the gospel commission of Jesus in Matthew 28:18-20. The three angels' message of Revelation 14:6 and 7, and the most wonderful sign of Matthew 24:14, where the gospel message must be preached to all the world as a witness before Jesus' second coming. At June Valley, we have been streaming our divine service, our evangelistic meetings. We've been streaming live on Facebook. In fact, June Valley is the first church in the country to stream live on Facebook. One of our highlights has been in 2015. We ran a 2-week evangelistic meeting, and we have 2 branch churches in Porebara and Lealea. Instead of bringing the church members from Porebara and Lealea to June Valley, we asked them to stay back in the church, and we streamed the meetings live, and they watch the programs live from their church. Why we decided to stream the meeting is because logistic, it was very expensive to bring the church members from the branch church to June Valley and return. It is convenient for the branch church members to worship in their own churches. Also, they can bring a visitor to the meeting in their branch church, whereas they cannot bring a visitor from the branch churches to June Valley. So we stream the meetings live, and our church members in the 2 branch churches, they watch the meetings live. We also assisted with some of these meetings in the country. One of them was Pastor the Bachelor's visit in Mount Aken. We streamed the program live. We also assisted many CPC's programs, Pathfinder and Youth Congress, and we also assisted with the streaming for Pastor Gary Kent's preaching in Ola. And the last we did was we streamed the PNG Arts Convention from Ella province. So we have been streaming many of our programs. We have been helping many churches in the city to stream their meetings. During the COVID week, we continue to stream. We stream 2 weeks meeting with a pastor in Iwik city, outside a village outside of Port Moresby. We also realized that many of the pastors, they were streaming live on Facebook, and the church members, they were watching these programs live from their homes. we also realized that the many churches, they were streaming these meetings live, and also there was a radio station in the country in Port Moresby where pastors were running Sabbath school divine service, and the AY live on Facebook, and the church members were watching these programs live. So it was the live streaming became very handy during the very useful during the COVID week. Pastors, they were preaching from their church or from their homes, and the church members were watching these programs live from their homes. The future of the live streaming I see is that the live streaming is here to stay until Jesus comes back. With the increase in technology and the mobile coverage in the country, the church can adopt this live streaming technology. So the church can use this technology to stream meetings. So the church members can watch these programs live from their churches or from their homes. So it is here to say that's the fastest and the easiest way and the most cheapest way to get the gospel message to our church members and to our church. So I believe the church should embrace this idea of live streaming to run most of our meetings, and is the easiest and I think the most cheapest way to get the gospel message across to the people. So I thank for giving this opportunity to share with other churches what June Valley has been doing using technology to get the gospel message to our church members and also other churches in the country. Thank you very much.
Wow, I really like that. It quite inspired me, really, Rachel, and good to see you too, Esther Sean. Thanks for joining us. It really inspired me to see, like, here's a church that is on the outskirts of, PNG's largest city. So obviously this is a church that has more access to, maybe to technology, to professionals and educated people. And yeah, they're doing live streaming and they're doing all sorts of things at their church, but they're not just building their little kingdom, which often, which can happen. They're actually using those talents, and that church in June Valley is being a resource to other programs that are happening around the country, and so they're helping to build capacity. I just think it's great to see that, those skills being developed and that servant heart going with it. So that mission is being spread. So good to hear from my One Talks Lopi and G.
I love it as well, because I think that we are undervaluing the fact that in the online space, what is really valued and what is celebrated is collaboration. And our church, we have all of the pieces in place to collaborate. But yes, as you were saying, Kent, sometimes everyone gets their own little kingdom and they're just like, let me, and there gets to be this tiny little bit of almost competition. So I love that, they were creating something, they were empowering other churches. And I think that this is a model. If we start thinking, what are some of the models that might come out of this? I think we're seeing some of them right here and right now. And speaking of models and understanding.
She looks like a model. Yeah,
I wasn't even going to go there, but yes, Esther Sean, our model on our show today. But actually, what she's coming in for today is a consultation. I'm so excited. This is a very exciting part of what we're going to be doing here over the 5 weeks. Is walking through the online church process with Manna Park. Did I say that right? Yes, with Manna Park. So maybe Esther, Sean, you can give us just a quick introduction of who you are and the church you go to and the role that you have there.
Okay, so I'm Esther Sean. I'm in New Zealand, in Auckland, and I'm the communications leader for Manna Park Church. And so we manage the Facebook page and the website, and basically trying to connect with people in the digital space, and also we run the newsletter and bulletin, so making sure the church has good connections and communication internally as well.
Okay. And what are some of the challenges that you've seen in the online space? Like, obviously you and I have chatted already, but maybe if you think of, the top 2 or 3 challenges that you've had in the digital space, what would you say they are?
I guess it's finding content that is really engaging for people who are seeking, and making it appealing to them so that they are drawn to it and want to get to know us, want to connect with us, and want to go on a journey with us.
Yes, I love that. I love that idea of going on a journey. It's something that we chatted about yesterday, is that when people come to our online spaces, we need to have a journey like laid out for them. So what we want to do is we want you all to be part of this process of this consultation. And what we've done on our website we'll send the link out and have it below as well. I'll try to put it in the comments, is we've laid out all of the conversations. I laid out the conversation that I've had with Esther Sean. I put the details of what she's starting with and where we want to go. So we're going to be going on a journey. We're going to be bringing on different experts to look at different aspects of their online space and see how we can help them to learn and grow. And I know in the digital marketing space, that's some of the best ways that I've learned, is watching other people go through the process of having that kind of consultation. I guess if you would just describe, what would it look like? What do you want it to look like? What do you want your church's online platforms to look like, ideally?
Well, I guess a vision that I have is for people who do not attend Manor Park Church to be talking about us in a positive way with their friends, because they feel that they have gained value and through their interactions with us physically or digitally. So that could look like us connecting with them through content that may be related to some of the ministries that we have with health or things in that way, or just if they're seeking for spiritual guidance and we connect with them in some way that resonates with them. And I think it's so easy to think of people and from our own background, but we need to try and think about what are they seeking for and how can we meet their needs, not what we think their needs are.
Hey, Esther Sean, I really like what you're saying about, that desire for content that's appropriate to, to your community around you, because that is something that I guess so many of us get mixed up. We think, oh, what's good Christian content, and we think of the sort of thing we enjoy as Christians, but often that's not the same content that's actually going to grab someone who's out there in the community, who's having those early questions about faith. So I think it's fantastic you're seeking content from there, and I'm sure that those who are watching may have some ideas of appropriate content for someone who's seeking to know more about faith. I've certainly got my tip, because I've been promised a plug opportunity, and that's Signs of the Times magazine. It's exactly intended to do that. It's intended to reach people in your community who are interested in faith but don't necessarily know all the church jargon. So yeah, if you all our articles are online at signsofthetimes.org.au or .nz, actually, signsofthetimes.org.nz for Manor Park there, and you can put your articles. You're very welcome. We want you to put them on your Facebook feed. But I guess the other thing I would say is that people need to know, well, what next? That was interesting. What next? So marketers talk about a call to action. What's the next step you want people to take to engage, with you guys a little deeper?
I think Candice also had a great question, because she was asking Esther Sean, just as we're starting this process with you, do you have a day job, and how much time in a week do you spend on this? So people kind of have an idea. They can compare, as we're going through this process, they can compare their time and how much time you have.
Right. Yeah, I'm pretty busy. I work part-time. I'm a music teacher. I study full-time, and I also do volunteer teaching Bible in school and teaching in Sabbath school and things like that. So I generally spend about 1 to 2 hours on communications each week.
Okay. All right. So we're inviting you to go on this journey with us. We're going to be going through it over the 5 weeks. There'll be things even happening during the week, because we're going to have to chat with her. We're going to have to help build things. So we invite you to go on this process and look at your own church's online presence and see if there's anything that you can learn from this process as well. And we'll have a link for you about where you can understand a little bit more about the starting point. We're just going to go on this journey together. So we want to thank you for joining us here today and for going on the journey with us, letting us, do a little consultation with you as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're continuing with our Kiwi theme. Rachel, is that right? Going to Whangarei?
Yes, they've been doing some interesting things during the lockdown, but I also would like to invite anyone else who would like a consultation. That is part of the process. Your local unions are going to be able to help if there's something that you need. There will be consultations available to help your church through the process. You're going to walk Manor Park through their process, but there will be resources for you afterwards as well. So if you want a consultation for your church, put it there wherever you're watching right now. Put in the comment section that, yes, my church would like a consultation. I need help. Hey, it's fine to say you need help. Raise your hand. I need help.
Yeah, I guess all churches are at a different stage, aren't they, of on that journey. Some churches have just shut down and members have just gone elsewhere. Others are saying, no, we need to do something about this. And we have our producer Adrian, who's also from Whangarei. He's wearing different hats. How you doing, Adrian?
Hey, Kent, Rachel, good to see you online.
You too. Did you want to share with us a bit about what's been happening at Whangarei?
Yeah, well, like everybody, I guess that the lockdown obviously caught us a little by surprise, and fortunately, we were already quite well equipped here in the Whangarei congregation to launch into the streaming platform stuff. And we've had a pioneer working in this area for some time, Shane Ringrose, and he's done a lot to actually. So we were already a streaming church, but of course, COVID meant we were no longer able to stream from the church, and so everything moved up home to my garage, and we had to figure it out. And we switched to basically streaming with smartphones and iPads as video switches and that kind of thing. So basically what we did was we said, okay, every Friday night we're going to be online. So come sort of Sabbath opening, we would go online with a brief message, and then Sabbath morning we would again go online with a panel discussion on Zoom, but that was live stream. And the goal of that, you've got a call there, Rachel?
I don't.
Mute yourself, Rachel, or your phone.
Yeah, so we would go online during lesson study time with a panel of 4 of us, and then much like we're doing here with our stream today, we could take live comments and questions from anybody who's watching either on the YouTube channel or on Facebook. So we would have a real-time lesson study discussion for an hour. We would then take a 15-minute break, and I'd come back online with a live stream sermon. Then we would go until we would wait until Sabbath closing again, and our associate pastor Jordan Spangler would then release a video which was used the premiere feature on Facebook. So it only went live at a certain time, so you watched it as if it was a live stream, and we would all do that as a church family. So it was a way to pull everybody together. We were in different places spread across the Whangarei district. It didn't take long before, of course, there was an international community also, and even across New Zealand, the North Island here, people were tuning into these live streams. So a combination of live stream, a combination of pre-recorded video. We also made sure that during the week we were staying in touch by releasing, short form videos, just a spiritual thought or a devotional throughout the week. So it wasn't a one day a week only thing, and just try to create community around the Word of God and around this. Using these technologies to pull us together to focus on spiritual things. And of course, we also had people, one of our members, Diane, she was great at actually using that old technology called a phone, and she would actually ring people and just find out how they're doing and stay in touch that way. So whether it's using old technologies we almost don't consider technology anymore, but they really are, such as a telephone, or whether it's using these newer technologies like streaming and pre-recorded videos and social media platforms, to sort of create and keep that community going. And of course, what we found was not only did it do that for us, but it stretched the boundaries beyond the walls of the church so that other people who don't usually worship with us were able to tune in and be a part of that.
That's interesting, Adrian, and I think I've heard a similar thing elsewhere, that if you can be consistent in what you're doing, people know what they're getting, they know what time of day or what time of week that it's happening, that it's that audience. Obviously your content has to be reasonable, but that audience will grow, and that's certainly been the case in my church, at Hillview in New South Wales, that we've seen the audience grow to international, just a little medium-sized church in Lake Macquarie, and it sounds like you're having a similar experience.
Yeah, I must say, this is what I really love about this whole concept is you've got this little church in Whangarei, a town in the far north of New Zealand, which, to be honest, not many people in the world would know anything about, suddenly being able to have a voice and have a footprint that extends way beyond even the the borders of New Zealand. And this is the possibility for every church. And I think this is the vision, that suddenly by employing these technologies for relatively low cost, I mean, you should spend a bit of money, you should make sure you've got some decent equipment, but for relatively low cost to potentially reach an audience that's global. I mean, what about small groups of people within an English-speaking country like New Zealand that maybe speak Mandarin or speak French or speak whatever? You may have some German people in your congregation, and they could extend the reach of your little church in an English-speaking country into a country in Europe by doing something in another language, at a certain time of the week or whatever the case may be. Like suddenly the boundaries of time and space no longer seem to be as applicable as they once were.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, one thing I was going to say that I think is interesting and exciting is, what you all are doing. And I think what we'll be able to do is listen to what different churches are doing and then to create a model and be able to say, here are some, not models as in ideal, but models as in you can try this and, maybe take a bit from this one and take a little bit from that one and see about how it's going to work. And I think, over the next few weeks, we're going to be looking at different topics. And some of them you've touched on a bit there, Adrian. Like the next week, we're going to talk about the team that you should have for your digital church. Who are some of the people you should be including in that process? The week after, we'll be talking about technical expertise for your digital church. The week after will be about what's the journey for the people visiting your digital church. So they come there, but then what's next? As you said earlier, Ken, we were talking with Esther Sean.
Mm-hmm.
And then talking about what are some of these, as we've looked at different churches like Frangere. I'm not even sure did I say that right?
Pretty close.
Oh, I'm getting better. I was worse at it last year, so I'm getting better. So as we're looking at these different weeks, we'll be able to see what different churches are doing. And I think that is something that I'm really looking forward to. And we have been a little bit New Zealand heavy. Okay, look, this is a call for everyone out there. If you're from PNGUM, TPUM, or AUC, you guys need to hold it down and bring out your content and tell us what you're doing, because NZPUC is bringing it this week. And we need you guys to bring your content, tell us what you're doing so you can be represented in the next 4 weeks, because we're about to go to New Zealand again. And after this, I know the next week we're going to be bringing in people from a lot of our other unions. We do have content as well from our other unions on our website, but we want to see you guys share what you're doing. But right now we're going to go to Josh. He's at Hamilton Central, and he has a challenge for us, and it's going to be a little bit of homework for you to do after we finish our session today, and we're just right on the verge of finishing that session. So we're going to go to Josh and listen to what his church did when they went into lockdown and what they did after lockdown was over as well.
Check it out.
Hi, my name is Josh. I'm the pastor of Hamilton Central Seventh-day Adventist Church here in beautiful New Zealand. And at the end of 2019, we were really praying about sort of some next steps for our church. And we felt, we've had a secretary in the past, but she felt like she needed to step into a new position. And so we had to hire a new secretary for our church. And we felt really impressed, especially after coming to digital discipleship conferences, that we really needed to hire into actually having somebody with the skills to do digital. We felt like God was really pulling us in that space to be able to do ministry on social media and using the wonderful world of the internet to actually really reach and influence the world. And so for us, we made that transition at the end of 2019. And at the beginning of 2020 was when we set a new vision for our church, which was to be a major Christian influence in Hamilton. And we had 4 main statements and 4 basically impact areas of the way that we were going to do that. We were going to connect people to Christ, we were going to love people, we were going to serve others, and we were going to build leaders. Then, obviously, we did a big vision series, and then everything felt like it got a bit derailed when COVID-19 hit. I'm sure so many of you felt the exact same. And it was a tricky time for so many of us. And for us, I felt like, we just put this new vision in place. God, what are you trying to do? How are you trying to still, get us to do this? Because I felt like God really put this on our hearts. So we just made a decision as a team that we're not going to make a new vision. We're not going to try and do something else in the meantime. We're still going to achieve the vision that God gave us, but we're going to do it through digital. So rather than using digital to kind of advertise our church and advertise our vision, we want to say, how can we use the digital space to actually fulfill the vision that God placed on our hearts? How can we be a major Christian influence in Hamilton online? How do we connect people to Christ online? How do we love people online? How do we serve others online? And how do we build leaders online? For us, and we haven't come up with all the answers. We're still experimenting. But for us, it was really important that we said that our vision is still in place and our digital ministry actually can achieve that vision. And so for us, what we've started doing is obviously live streaming our church online and doing online services. And that's something we've still kept doing even after the COVID season, because we've actually built up an online community separate to our church, in-person church community, which is so cool. So it's like our church family has just gotten bigger. But also we've been doing other things online. We've been saying, how can we love people online? How do we connect people together? And so we started doing these short little get-to-know-you posts of different church members in our community so that more people could get to know them without even technically knowing them or getting to meet them. It was a really cool way to actually build community. And we thought, well, okay, how can we build leaders? And it's been a really amazing space to actually get people who wouldn't normally get on stage or, on the platform, or people who wouldn't normally serve in a physical church location to actually serve online. And we've been doing these Saturday night closing Sabbath sort of testimonial videos. And it's been amazing to see different people getting involved, sharing their stories in ways that they wouldn't have before. And we feel like we're really building up new leaders in this space because they're having a chance to do something they wouldn't normally get to do because of the digital space. So for us, we really feel like God is continuing to press this on our hearts, even though in New Zealand we've kind of moving into a new season with COVID, and I know the rest of the world is still dealing with it. But for us, we've kind of been able to meet physically again. But we're still saying, digital has become such a strong part of our identity as a church, and it needs to be such a strong part about our vision as well. Our digital online space is not just for advertising a physical location anymore. It's actually a space where we fulfill our vision that God has placed on our hearts as a church. So we invite you into that wrestle with this conference. I invite you into saying, how can you actually fulfill your church or your conference's mission or vision using the digital space? Thank you so much. Hope you guys have an awesome time.
Yeah, the Kiwis are bringing it, aren't they? Wow.
You're going to go rally your troops now, aren't you? Go get them to come through. You know what? When we were having meetings planning for this network that we're doing here, I was so excited. Like Josh shared what he was doing so casually, but I was like, I feel like it's foundational to being in the online space, is not just using the online space to advertise, but actually existing there. The internet, if you see our branding, you see this like city sitting on a hill, and it's actually that the internet is like a city, and your church or your Facebook page or your Instagram account, whatever it is, it's like a little city sitting on a hill, and you have the opportunity to shine light. Don't just use it to advertise, but actually exist in that online space and figure out how you can influence within that online space. And I feel like that's what Josh did. And I want to challenge other churches to go through this exact same process. That's your homework for next week. I want you to stop and go through this process.
Sounds fantastic. Now, Rachel, a part of the whole Adventist Church Online Network experience is for people to be able to chat and engage with one another in small groups. Can you explain to us how that works?
Yeah, so you needed to sign up to the AdventistChurchOnline.com website. We have a page there. You can sign up. Those people who signed up, we've sent the code to get into that chat. If you haven't done that yet, you still have time. You need to hop on there, AdventistChurchOnline.com, and you sign up. We'll send you the details to get into those small group chats. And we're going to be able to then jump into a conversation. I'm sure you've been wanting to share something. Many of you have been sharing, and you'll be able to be there. We won't keep you long, just about 20 minutes, just for you to have an opportunity to chat. And then if you still have more to say, you can jump into the Facebook group and continue to have your say there. So you should check your email now.
Okay, I tell you what, there are a lot of really great comments, coming through Facebook from people who are watching. There's questions about like safety, for example. We're all being really, wow, this is awesome, what a great way to connect. But obviously the online space is a little bit of a wild west in some ways, and that there are issues of safety. So yeah, thanks for that question, Neil. I know like we're running short on time, Rachel. What do we have to sort of move forward to the next phase, or do we have time to sort of spend time reflecting?
I guess we can take a minute or two, but yeah, we are like at the edge of time. But yeah, if you have some really pertinent point that you want to add to the conversation, go for it.
Oh, look, I was just wondering about the safety issue which Neil did raise, to say, what practical tips can we give churches to keep online church a safe space. I mean, look, I guess in-person church experiences aren't always safe either. There are unexpected things that can happen, but it certainly seems to be a worthwhile question to ask and to answer. What have you found so far, Rachel, in because you've been in this space for a fair while now?
Yeah, I think that's actually a very involved question. And I think, there are some people who their whole job is just kind of trying to help establish that safety. And I think our church has in some ways put some measures in place to help with, putting some measures to keep people safe. And I think it's a topic we should probably delve into deeper in another week when we can give it, the time that it deserves. So I think that would be a good time. I think Pete here has a comment as well about the Samoan government and its plan to ban, it's thinking about banning Facebook. So it's asking, what can I say about that? So it did.
You gotta love Samoa. You gotta love Samoa. Hey, let's just change the side we drive on. Let's just put ourselves on the other side of the date line. Let's ban Facebook. Hey. Yeah. Look, when they do it in Samoa, they go hard.
And I think these are questions that we can address in a future episode. So we'll chat about it if not next week, one of the other weeks. But I've written it down on my little piece of paper here for us to note it. And we would love to invite you into a group. If you haven't been able to message on, I see someone who said that they've signed up a couple of times and they haven't gotten the link. So Jason Cook, I see you, I acknowledge you, and we are going to take care of you. So if there's anyone else who's having that type of trouble, let us know. But we just want to thank God for, you joining us here today, and that he's starting this conversation, and we invite you to be part of the conversation.
Yeah, so fantastic to see people from Australia, from New Zealand, from Fiji, from Vanuatu, from Tahiti even. I saw someone say good day, and I probably missed a few other countries too. So yeah, really fantastic to see our whole South Pacific family joining together. It's been a time of challenge, but it's been a time of opportunity, and it's just great that to see people like Victor Kulikov and Rachel to grab this challenge, grab the bull by the horns.
Not just me, it's the other unions as well. We all work together.
You guys and a lot of other people, to say, let's make the best of this we can. Let's use the opportunity that we've been given. Yeah, so thank you.
Okay, so I've seen a few people saying that they haven't gotten the link. So if you're in the Facebook group, the link will be there, or message on your page or send a direct message. We don't want to leave anyone out who wants to be part of the conversation. So on that note, we want to challenge you to continue to have a church that is intentional and to continue to have a church that is impactful. And we will see you on our next broadcast.
Have a good one.